recording.
Let me get an audio sync.
You got the camera going?
Yep.
We're rolling. Cool.
Did you just turn it on like the clapper?
Yeah, the clapper. Clap on.
Now you turned it off. Everything works on a clapper, doesn't it?
Yeah, apparently.
Yeah. So we're here in the in Minnesota, Tethered HQ for the totally terrific Tethered Tallywag
Part 2.
second annual. And we got a whole bunch of cool people here, so we decided we'd get on and do a podcast and see if maybe we can help some people out, learn some things about hunting, and have a little bit of fun. So we could go around the table and just introduce ourselves. And
John Eberhart. Nice to meet you people out there.
Garrett Prowl.
Ernie Power.
Greg Godfrey.
Jared Schaefer.
Andy May.
Yeah. So we're up here. We've just been doing a lot of BSing, a lot of bow shooting. Andy has done very well with the bow shooting. So has Jared, actually. Jared, you could talk about your shooting here. We'll let you talk about it. But I have been actually very impressed. I thought you were going to be really bad because of your system. Because of
Nobody
your system.
trusts your
So
system.
explain
Nobody
your
trusts it.
system, and then and let me preface it with you have shot really, really good.
At lots of
All right,
distances
so
and lots of light.
let's go back to why I made this change. So last year in Missouri, we were down there hunting, the whole crew. On like the second day or something, I had a really nice buck come in, and I knew it was going to be iffy on if I was going to get a shot or not because it was so dark. He walks into range, 24 yards, draw back. I can see him with my naked eye, and I cannot see him through my peep sight. So that has haunted me ever since that hunt. So I decided to make a change, and early this spring, I took the peep sight out of my bow, and I've just got the Bowmar nose button, which is it's basically a kisser button for your nose, and I put that on there. I took the peep out, and I'm shooting better than ever. So I'm really happy with it.
Yeah, and
That's
you are
interesting.
shooting really good.
Yeah, I mean, I think I am. So
Well, and we're not talking 20 yards here. There's some of the targets we've been shooting at
65,
this week
yeah.
are over 60 yards, and you're hanging in with everybody.
yeah, so I'm happy with it, and I'm excited to see what happens this year. Hopefully it works out. As soon as I miss a deer using it, then I'll go back to a peep sight.
And I know it's not for everybody because there's another fella here. His name is Carl, and he can't hit the broadside of the
Yeah.
barn without a peep sight.
We love you, Carl.
We're looking at Carl over there, and he's mad now.
What size peep did you have?
Like 3/16. So not a huge peep, but I'd tried the 1/4 inch, and I don't know. I just never liked a big peep, and I always had trouble with lining up everything. The house.
So why not just make it infinitely big?
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know. It just felt natural to me, and I like it, and it's working good. So I'm gonna keep on rocking it.
Well, it is working. It's working really well. So
Yeah.
I know that you're a really good shot, and I've seen you shoot before, and I know that you're a really accurate shooter. So I figured he'd probably be okay, flat, no pressure, flat. However, you were shooting. We set up the tree in the back, and we've been shooting out of the saddle at awkward angles,
Yep.
up and down hills, and still drilling it.
On our knees, on our butts, like all
Everywhere.
kinds of weird
Yeah.
angles. We basically played horse last night with 3D targets. And, he's hanging in there good.
Yeah. Andy basically set up like a total archery challenge course for us. It's basically what we did, right? I mean, it was just different shots around some up to 60 yards. And I believe Team Wuhan beat Team USA.
Wuhan.
We did.
Team Wuhan.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, Ernie was on our team too, so
You got to mention Huck,
Garrett.
man.
Wasn't
Huck
Garrett
won the-
too?
Huck
Yep.
won the
yeah,
money.
Garrett too. So the winners right here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was the only Team USA. And
And
then Huck shows up
You bowed
with-
out before the
I
tournament
quit
was
halfway
over.
through the tournament.
Well, you knew you were going to lose.
I
so
knew
you
I
just
was
quit.
going to lose. If I can't win, I'm not going to play.
Man. Well, and then Huck shows up with his Walmart arrows and his bow that he bought at a garage sale, and he's the one that hit we had a $100 bill folded up into a 1-inch square and stuck on the vitals of a 3D target at 57 yards,
57.
and you had to shoot it out of a saddle
From a
on a
saddle.
platform, elevated, and we were upstairs making food, and he says, I know it's inconvenient, but I'm going to go down there and win that $100 real quick. And he walked down, grabbed his bow, cold, took one shot, center punched the $100 bill, came back up, helped make dinner.
And he didn't even have a pin, right?
No, he had a 40-yard pin, and he shot this 60-yard shot without he just Whatever, it's Huck.
He actually said he was just trying to hit the deer.
Well, he did
drained
miss it 3 or 4 times after that. So.
Yeah, so I've really enjoyed that. I wish I'd have brought my bow. I didn't get my bow up here, so I've been kind of
Well, you'll know for next year.
playing around. It's been really fun. It's cool to shoot with people that are really good, like Garrett and Andy and Jared, because it helps me get better. So that
Well, and Andy's been critiquing form and helping people. It's Andy. He helps people, but
yeah, and I'm not a great shot. I just flat out not. I mean, so it's good to get around people that actually know what they're doing.
Especially with a lady's bow.
With a lady's bow. Yes. There's probably some pictures out there. I had to shoot a lady's bow at like 40 pounds, like 24-inch draw length.
Which that's his normal draw length anyway. So.
I normally shoot 24 and a half, so it was a little short for me.
Almost bent like 90 degrees.
Yeah, but we made it work. But that kind of makes me think of one of the first things that I wanted to talk about is we're up here shooting right now in July. What are some of the things that hunters should be doing right now from your experience that will make them more successful come November? What do you think, Andy?
Yeah, during the summertime, I really focus on my archery, just a lot of repetition. Probably before this time, I do a lot of tinkering and testing between different like arrow setups and configurations, trying to see what I can be most accurate with. But by this time, I like to settle in on something that's working the best for me. And then I start to really focus on repetition and building that muscle memory, starting to shoot it like we did yesterday and today, shooting at different angles, more hunting scenario type shots, and just more real world hunting situations, just to kind of out of the saddle, that sort of thing. So,
Or out of a tree stand if you're not a saddle guy.
Or out of a tree stand.
Like some realistic stuff.
So you're not shooting that shot for the first time when a deer walks by. You've done it 100 times throughout the summer. Aside from the archery thing, right around July is when I really try to start glassing for deer. I'll start putting some cameras out right around this time too. I don't put them out any earlier. I don't see the benefit of it. But right around this time through August, I'll start putting cameras out. And when I have a free evening, I'm out glassing for deer, trying to find 2, 3, 4 shooters, around my hunting area to try to zone in on those. Some of those disappear. You see them, in bean fields and stuff in the summer. They might relocate 2, 3 miles away. Other ones kind of stick in the same area. But it's just, for me in Michigan, it's just a numbers game. So I try to find, 3 to 4 to 5 different bucks, and then I focus in on those. And those are the deer that I try to hunt kind of early season through the beginning of the pre-rut. I'm kind of focused on those areas and trying to zone in on where their core areas are. Once that happens, that time passed, more pre-rut and rut, those deer are very unpredictable. And then I'm more looking for just any old mature deer. I'll still hunt in those same areas, but I'll go to, different areas that just tend to be better pinch points and where some does are and whatnot. But right now, that's what I do. I spend a lot of time glassing and running cameras and just trying more of an inventory. So I just starting to kind of zone in on some certain particular deer and maybe some certain areas to focus in on the fall. And some of that pans out, some of it doesn't. But to me, it's just gives me a little bit of a edge. And I don't know. That's pretty much what I do in the summertime.
Yeah, so you're just shooting, inventory, starting to deal with your trail camera strategy.
Yeah, the majority of my like on the boots ground scouting was done. As soon as like the snow melted.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's when I really like to get in there and dissect and really learn the area. But this time of year, it's so green, the sign's hard to see. So if I did it right, all that stuff is done pre-hand. And so now I'm doing more of the long distance scouting and trail camera work.
Anybody else doing anything different? Garrett, I know me and you are going to, me and Jared too, we're all going to go hunt North Dakota. So for the guy that's planning an out-of-state hunt, what should he be doing right now?
Well, certainly a lot of e-scouting. That's the obvious place to start. Shane and I went and just the last weekend drove out to North Dakota and just did a boots on the ground scouting trip, which in an ideal world, we'd be doing what Andy's saying. We'd be going out there and, March, April, once that snow is melted, and then getting the info. But in a way, it's kind of nice this time of year too, because you're able to drive around and see what crops are growing in certain fields. Yeah. You're able to say, hey, this was an alfalfa field, but now it's a hay field this year. Or maybe there's canola growing in a field that had soybeans last year. So that's all good, helpful information to know. I don't like going in the woods just because, it's hard to see sign. There's deer flies, mosquitoes.
Yeah.
I just feel like
alligators, snakes.
and they could move. What you see now might be different than the opener. The nice thing about North Dakota is the opener so early, they might still be on those summer patterns. So we definitely still feel like we got some value in that out-of-state boots on the ground trip because it's so early. But if it was like a rut trip, like what we're planning for South Dakota, I'm not really planning on going out there this time of year. I feel like that is almost going to be better for me to just kind of, freelance, so to speak, and just learn as we go and just cover a lot of ground the first couple of days and just really just keep moving until we find good sign. So that's been basically all e-scouting and just trying to find as many high probability spots as we can. And then once we get there, we'll just, start knocking them off and saying this, no good. Okay, here's a good sign. That's just kind of the plan for the out-of-state trip.
What's funny about that is that when we were comparing each other's Onyx maps yesterday for North Dakota, we had marked a lot of the same areas. Mm-hmm. So, and Garrett doesn't know this, but I took screenshots of all the ones that I didn't mark. So he won't have any leg up on me when we go to North Dakota.
Oh, that's funny.
I'm pretty jacked about it. John, what about you? I mean, you've written books about preseason setup and speed touring and all of these things. So, I mean, what are you doing different than what most hunters are doing at this point in time? What's something that gave you a leg up that nobody else was doing?
Well, as probably everybody knows, I do all my scouting and location preparation January, February, March. Like Andy said, as soon as the snow melts. So I've probably got 45 locations prepped right now. And so right now I'm just shooting. I started shooting about 2 weeks ago, and just for the muscle memory part, because my shoulder is still a little bit messed up, but it's not going to affect my hunting this year. And then about September 20th, because in Michigan our season opens October 1. About September 20, I will do a speed tour in total scent lock of all of my early season hunting locations. I don't look at any of my rut phase locations, just early season locations, because they're typically at scrape areas, mass trees, fruit trees. And basically I go to see if they have mass production or fruit production, or if the scrapes are active, because a lot of times the crop rotations change where the scrape areas are, how active they are from one year to the next. And because I go on September 20th, what that does is the mature bucks, if I want to kill a buck, it's going to be rubbed out by September 5th probably at the latest, because the bigger bucks rub out early. So if there is mass or fruit at a location, there's typically, because there's doe traffic there, there's typically going to be some sort of buck activity there as well, because they have typically well before season, they've actually laid some of their dominance markers, whether it be rubs or scrapes or whatever, if it's at a location that's dropping mast or fruit, where there's a lot of doe activity. So that's what I do. I do my speed tours. I'll usually have about 20 locations that I will hunt early season. When I say early season, I'm talking the first 2 or 3 days of the season, because typically where I hunt, after the second or third day, everything's nocturnal. And typically even before season, everything's nocturnal, because where I hunt, there's always other people. And typically their preseason scouting turns those bucks nocturnal, so it's almost a waste of my time. But I have killed 3 bucks in the first couple days of season. But anyway, that's what the speed tours are for, is to just weed out those, of those 20 locations, I weed out the ones that don't have buck activity at them, and I just hunt the ones that do have buck activity. And once
so you whittle that down to like a handful of spots.
Yeah, yep. I do the speed tours, and then I basically base where I'm going to hunt them on the time of day. Obviously, at an apple tree, I'm not going to hunt it in the morning because I'm spooking deer with my entry. Or at an oak, I'm typically not going to hunt it in the morning. That's going to be an evening spot. So I after that speed tour, I kind of pick out my 4 or 5 favorite spots that look the best, and that's what I hunt.
But
I don't
you
put
will
up
hunt
cameras.
in the morning in
Oh, yeah,
early season.
I will hunt in the morning.
Okay.
Yeah, it's going to typically be in a transition area close to a bedding area, where they may be transitioning from a crop to a bedding area, but it's got to have good transition security cover to the bedding area.
Now, how are you managing those spots? You said you probably have 40 or 50 spots prepped right now. Is this just all sealed away in Eberhart's mind, or do you
Oh, no,
use
I have books with everything's written. I've been writing that stuff in books since the 70s.
So you use analog books, you're not using anything digital or anything like that.
Well, no, I've been printing aerials now. Everything's on an aerial photo.
What he's asking,
I
do you
zoom 'em
use a
out.
mapping service like on your phone?
Oh, I'm sorry. No, no.
Or a spreadsheet
The
or
only
something like
thing
that.
I use on that is like if I'm scouting, property postseason, and I see something that I want to prep that looks good, I'll mark it as a waypoint on my Onyx. But, then I go back, and once I prep something, I typically can find it. My retention is actually pretty bad, but when it comes to hunting locations, I can remember every place I've done anything.
Well, the reason that I asked is because last night, me and Ernie, well, a lot of us went up and hunted Michigan last year during the Public Land Challenge and stuff, and you needed some help, and you were like, Greg, give me some spots that I could go check out, and so I was sending you Onyx pins last night.
You did,
and I just
absolutely.
wanted to be able to tell the world that you asked me for help. So,
and I thank you.
That was a leading question, yeah.
And I am definitely going to check those out. I don't think I will check those out this year because I don't like scouting during preseason.
Too
but
late.
I will I will guarantee you 100% I will check those out after season.
Well, and you'll be able to walk there because that lake will be frozen.
Well, yeah, but if it's frozen, there's going to be snow, and I never postseason scout with snow on the ground ever because the deer change their patterns when there's snow on the ground. So I wait for it to melt, so the lake won't be froze probably at that time.
Yeah, I'm doing the same thing. Like, I just went out 2 weeks ago and put out a bunch of trail cameras. I've got to put out a bunch more. I'm trying to get a couple of cell cameras. I've never had a cell camera before, so I'm pretty excited about that. I hunt a lot on a river. It's just hard to get to, so to go in the way I do it is I never go more than, always less than 100 yards from the river. That's just kind of my strategy is if I'm hunting a spot, it's a pinch point generally on a river, a big oxbow or something like that, or a point where I think some bucks might be bedded and I want it close. So I don't ever want to go in there and blow out that spot, so I only hunt those spots. I can only check the cameras when I hunt it, and I will only hunt a spot like that 2 to 3 times a season. So without cell cameras, that info doesn't help me at all this season. It only helps me next season. So I'm pretty excited about the cell cameras because it might give me maybe a little bit more of an edge. I'm hoping, but I don't really know. But I'm going to hopefully pick up some of those in the next week or two and then go put them out in the river. But I just put out some cameras, and I didn't prep any trees this year. As far as preset trees, I already have probably 15 prepped, and I won't hunt any more than that, any more preset trees. And I don't know. Anything you're doing different?
My biggest thing is shooting now. I kind of put a lot of eggs in one basket this year. I'm going to Alaska for the first time.
Yeah.
And so for me, my biggest thing is it's going to be open terrain, random distances, lots of things that I can't control. So if I can at least control my shooting and my form, that is going to give me some confidence in the deal. I've never done a hunt like this before, so I'm trying to at least eliminate one variable. And for me, the more shooting I can do during the summer, the more confident I am later in the year, regardless of other circumstances, obstacles, or whatever. If at least I feel like I can make a shot, it's a mental thing, but it helps me out.
Anything for you, Jared? Anything special?
So this time of the year, I'm like Andy. I'm just doing a lot of shooting, just repetition, start to work on hunting scenario type shooting. I generally don't put any trail cameras out until mid-July, late July. Then I kind of start, trying to find a target buck or two to go after. I'll start glassing where I can. It's kind of hard in the area that I'm in to glass just because it's mostly, woods and stuff like that. But I will glass, get the trail cameras out in places that I've scouted, back in January, February, March. So I don't do a ton of preseason scouting. I'm just trying to, get cameras out in the areas I've already looked at and then just try to find something to go after. So right now it's just a lot of shooting and, I've already got my bow stuff figured out. I'm not making any changes from this point. So I'm just repetition.
Well, you're out of time too.
Yeah, I'm out of time.
We leave in like 2 weeks.
Yeah. So I'm going to Alaska with Ernie. So I'm just just been trying to get a lot of shooting in at longer distance just to
Right.
get comfortable. So
I guess the other thing that I should probably mention that I'm sure we're all doing it. We just didn't really think about it because it's it's probably just second nature to all of us. But I'm also, this time of year, I'm looking at my gear. I'm checking my ropes. I'm putting on stealth strips to quiet things down. I'm making sure everything works. Whether you hunt from a saddle or a ladder stand, it doesn't matter. You should be inspecting that stuff, making sure it's safe, it's usable, things like that. I do that pretty much year round.
Yeah.
It's one of the things that keeps me engaged in hunting year round is I'm constantly trying new things, new ropes, carabiners, platform saddle, all that stuff. So we did a fair amount of that here this week, playing around with some new toys and prepping some new stuff. But I'm sure you guys are all doing the same stuff. But
I actually keep a list, right?
Okay.
So over the course of a season, stuff goes wrong. You're like, okay, this situation didn't work. This situation didn't work. And I spend the next off season fixing whatever it is that caused me troubles last year. And inevitably, something comes along next year that I missed.
Yep.
And so every year, I'm fixing stuff. And it could be the simplest thing. It could be, I don't even know. It could be like your bow made a noise on something or a knot got jammed up when you were trying to adjust it. Little things where you're like, okay, whatever that is, I don't want to mess with that problem next year, so I'm going to fix it this year.
Yep, that's a good point. I'm constantly doing that as well. You don't want to find out about that stuff on opening day or on November 1st because you didn't check the cables on your climbing tree stand and you go and get it out of the garage and they're broken.
Yeah.
You don't, or they're rusted or something like that. You don't want to do that.
And it's the assumptions that get you. So I built an elk rifle a few years ago and went out on an elk hunt. And I had an elk that stepped out at a yardage that I had practiced with and done a lot of things, but I had switched out the scope on this rifle. And I had the turrets and I had all the stuff. So, I mean, mechanically it should have all worked, but I went to dial up the turrets and I ran out of adjustment.
Oh, I remember that.
And it's just the dumbest thing. It's like, okay, next year I'm going to put a 20 MOA lifter on my rail so that I don't run out of adjustment. But I had to learn that lesson the hard way because there's an elk that I can't adjust all of my stuff to make a shot.
right.
Yeah, I agree. Little things matter. Any special hunts? You kind of talked about Alaska. I mean, what are you guys going to shoot in Alaska?
Yeah, we're going for caribou and whatever else we can find, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, we're there for 2 weeks,
Yeah.
right? And so we're going with a couple of guys who really kind of know the area, know what's going on. They've hooked us up with some nice opportunities, and basically they said, if we fill out early, well, we got 2 weeks. We can go try and do some spot and stock black bear hunting. We can try and do a moose hunt. We can do whatever. I mean, it's going to be kind of a freelance, just kind of go with the flow, whatever happens type of a hunt.
Yep.
We just have 2 weeks in Alaska to see what we can do.
Yep.
Andy, what's your hunt calendar look like? I know you have some pretty exciting hunts lined up.
Yeah, I got an unexpected hunt. I applied for a high country mule deer in Nevada, and I drew. That's going to be early August, actually. It's the earliest tag available in the West.
That's right around the corner.
Yeah, it's coming up.
Yep.
So I'm super pumped about that. I've been applying for that tag for a while because most people know I work at a school system. So once school starts, like my out-of-state trips have to be short. They're usually 2 to 4 days because I'm using a weekend. I call in sick on a Friday.
Hope the school system's not listening.
No, hopefully not. I'll leave, drive all night Thursday, hunt Friday, Saturday, Sunday, drive all night back. That's usually what I do, or maybe I'll take the Monday or something. But often I'll go twice. I'll take 2 or 3 day trips, something like that. But this starts so early; it's before I'm back to school,
And it's so far.
it's far.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a high country, back country hunt. We're going to be in anywhere from 5 to 8 miles. Is where some of the spots that I have picked out. But what's cool about it is, in regards to my schedule, is we're not back to school yet, so I can go with no pressure to get back. I can go and relax. It's one of the first times I've ever been able to do that
Nice.
where I can go and devote the time that it actually needs. And so I'm gonna
like what a normal person would need, or what Andy May needs. 'Cause last year, most of your 3-day hunts were like a day and a half, 2 days.
yeah. Well, I think this is gonna be a little trickier hunt. I really do. I think it's gonna be difficult, and it's gonna require some time. So I'm leaving on the 7th. The season starts on the 10th. So we're gonna get there, a couple days early, so we can hike back in, set up camp, and start scouting. And then we're gonna have a substantial amount of time to try to get it done. Aside from that, I was really lucky, and I drew. Well, not lucky. Knew I was going to draw it, but my Iowa tag finally.
Yeah, because you paid like $25,000.
That's
for
right.
the tag after your preference points, and we were talking about that earlier. By the time you do the math, it's expensive tag.
It's very expensive. It's more expensive than my out west tags.
It's crazy.
I mean, when you consider everything, it's getting to be really pricey. But I love Iowa, so I'm really pumped about that. That'll be a rut hunt. I think I'm going to try. I've never done it this early, but I think I'm going to try like a late October short 2-3 day hunt. Try to beat maybe the non-resident crowd. I mean, it's not crowded, but I'm just curious I think if I can get on a really good deer or catch a visual during that time, I got a really good chance at them. Where when I usually go in November, it's more like a numbers game. I'm seeing a lot of bucks, and I'm looking for just some random buck. But I feel like if I get on a really good one in that late October time frame, I got a really good chance at that particular deer. So I'm going to try it out, see how it works. But I'm going to devote some time to that tag, maybe as many as 3 trips, but they're going to be like 3 days max. And then I got the normal Michigan and Northern Ohio. That's usually what I consider my home turf.
Yeah.
Then I think I'm gonna go back to Nebraska. I had an elk hunt planned. It's still up in the air, but my partner got COVID 3 months ago, and he's still kind of dealing with the after effects. And that Colorado hunt is just so physically taxing, and he's having some heart issues and some lung issues. I just don't think it's a good idea. So I think I'm gonna replace that with Nebraska. And then, I don't know, usually if tags get filled, I'll throw something else in there. I've been to Maryland, something like that. But that's pretty much what my season is kind of looking like at this point. So
What are you doing to prep for that Iowa hunt?
So I already went down there. I go down to Iowa every year, even when I don't.
Every year?
Every year. Yep, because I really like scouting down there. So I go down. I've pretty much walked every piece of property in my zone that's public, so
Nice.
I know them.
Man, that's smart.
Yeah, I know them. I'll take a 2-day trip, a 3-day trip, but I have a lot of money invested into this tag, so I want to put myself in the best type of situation as possible. So I like to scout all those areas and really narrow down to like 2 or 3 particular areas where I have the most confidence in. So any out-of-state hunt, if I can, I like to get boots on the ground. I really like to do that, especially if it's a rut hunt. I really like to get out there and see it and read the sign. If it's an early season hunt, like a Kentucky or like this Nevada hunt, preseason scouting doesn't do me so much good. It's going to be more of like long-distance scouting just prior to the hunt. A lot of glassing. Like when I go to Kentucky, I go 2 days before the season. I'm glassing bean fields, secluded corners, low spots in fields, away from access points, away from roads. So going down there beforehand for an early season hunt doesn't make much sense to me. I got to be there real time. So I'm trying to get that information real time. But a rut hunt, that sign's easily visible. So I'm at my best when I can get out there beforehand and kind of read the sign. That'll kind of put me in the positions where I think I have the best chance. So the Iowa tags, it's a great tag to get. So with just everything invested in it, I want to put the time that it deserves. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So.
And is that going to reflect in your goals for the hunt as far as an animal? I'm assuming you're looking for an old, mature animal.
Sure. Yeah, I'm always looking for a mature animal. I'm not much of a score guy.
Right.
If I see a giant gnarly 5-point that looks like he's 6-7 years old, I'm shooting that thing. You know what I mean? I don't care what he scores. But when you go down there, just coming from where I'm from, where John's from, like there's a legitimate chance as a much higher scoring deer than what we're used to seeing.
Right.
So, Yeah, I mean, when I'm down there, it's much more likely for me to pass like a 130 or 140, on day 1 or day 2. I mean, I would do that probably. But, I'm a sucker for big, gnarly, old, unique racks, something with a big frame. It doesn't have to have a lot of points or score that high, but if it's unique and it's an old deer, that's usually good enough for me. So
Yeah, I
Didn't
think
you
that's
shoot
fair.
like a real nice 6-point or something like that last year?
In Maryland.
Yeah.
in Maryland, yeah, big, giant 6-point. It was a super unique buck, an old deer. Yeah, that was cool.
Yeah. Garrett, what about you? I know you're going quite a few places as well.
Yeah, probably this year more different states and different hunts than I've probably done in 1 year in the past. So because of that, I'm trying to manage my expectations for each of those accordingly, because I'm not going to be able to hunt many states as well as if I hunted fewer states and just put more time into those fewer states. But North Dakota for their opener, and then this year Wisconsin and Minnesota's openers are offset by a week. Usually they're the same day. So I'll hit Wisconsin's opener when they open, and then the week after I'll hit Minnesota hard. With the extra daylight, I'll just try and get as much early season good hunts as I can in those states. And then just kind of do whatever until the rut. Once the rut hits, South Dakota, then straight to Missouri, and then maybe a few days to recover. There's a Wisconsin gun season that I will typically go do because that's its own tag. And then Iowa shotgun tag, I applied for that this year, and the reason that I didn't just put in for a preference point and try and get an archery tag is, I kind of always had the dilemma of, do I want to hunt Iowa and not hunt all these other states during the rut? So I just decided, okay, well, I'm going to hunt South Dakota, Missouri during the rut, and then in December, I'll go down to Iowa and just see what happens. So it'll give me a little bit of a break after the rut to recover for a few days and then go down and hit that hunt. So that'll be, a unique experience. I haven't done a December gun hunt like that. So it'll be new. I'll try and talk to as many people as I can to learn as much as I can about how those hunts typically go, what to expect. If I can make a scouting trip down there, I'd like to. But I've already been doing a lot of e-scouting for it. And then probably by the time that's done, I'll be pretty worn out, I think.
Yeah. That's a full schedule.
Yeah.
It wears on you.
Yeah.
It wears on you. And especially where we live up here, I get tired of the cold. I mean, ultimately, if you're doing Wisconsin rifle, that's a 0 to 15 below week. It generally is. Minnesota's cold.
Man, that's cold.
That's too cold for me.
It's stupid cold. There was a year that it was 15 below with wind for the opener, and I know a lot of people who didn't hunt opener. They just went and it was like a deer camp bar crawl. They literally went from one deer camp to the next deer camp to the next deer camp and just visited all their buddies, had a couple beers at each place, and they spent the whole day inside because it was just too cold. Those are the days that it's just hard to stay in a stand.
Seriously. Garrett, now that you're kind of an old pro, for the guy that's taking his first out-of-state hunt this year, because there will be people watching and listening that are taking their first trip. What are the things that they need to be thinking about? What are some pro tips for making it more affordable, for making it more successful, making it more enjoyable?
Yeah. So, I mean, in terms of comfort and affordability, you got to do what you're comfortable with. If you know that if you try and sleep in a camp and save some money, sleeping in your truck or in a tent, and if you're not going to be 100% because you're not getting a full night's sleep or whatever the case may be, maybe you're better off spending a few extra bucks, get a motel, get a good night's sleep, take a shower, that type of stuff. But if you're on the other end of the spectrum and you can handle a little bit more punishment, then go out and save a few extra bucks and have the full experience. But in terms of, at least for me, what seems to be the most helpful in terms of being successful is try and find somebody, if you can, who's already done something very similar. Try and learn as much as you can and from as many different people as you can, because you might learn something a little bit different from each one of them. Try and do as much online scouting as you can. If you can, it definitely helps to take a scouting trip. And I know this time of year it might not be feasible for a lot of people. Ideal case, you scout maybe the year before during the exact same time frame, like during the hunting season would be, ideal case scenario. But even if you're not able to get out there, then you can still have a lot of those spots prepped. But what seems like is very helpful for me is if I am in a mindset going in where I know I have a lot of these high probability spots picked out, but I'm not necessarily glued to one specific area and not necessarily glued to one specific plan. There's something to be said about making a plan and sticking to it, but then you have to be able to know when to deviate from the plan and try something else. And it's not an easy thing to know how and when to do that. And sometimes you just got to be okay and know that you might have some failures in order to learn. And it might, take a couple of years before you really start feeling like you're figuring out. At least it's been that way for me.
We were talking about that earlier, Andy, about how I did the opposite of what you just recommended. My first Colorado backcountry elk hunt, I kind of knew that we should probably, me and Andy were talking about how you were successful and I wasn't, because I knew that we should probably change areas. There was an outfitter that came in on horseback. He was camped a half mile from us. We weren't seeing elk. We weren't hearing elk. But we had a plan and we stuck to it, whereas we should have just bit the bullet, packed our camp, hiked out, and gone to a new area. So I can relate to that. So there's definitely something to be said for staying in the moment and letting the critters tell you what to do. And if they're not there, you can't force them to be there.
Yeah, it's kind of an instinct thing too. You have to just go with your gut sometimes. And if you're not feeling it in a certain spot, in the situation, pop smoke and move. I do that a lot of times. And, like Garrett said, try to get as much intel as you can before you go. I even like to, when I'm on OnX, I'm looking for places to park my truck even, because I get stressed out about that. Like, where am I going to park my truck? What am I going to do in that situation? So even down to that level, just try to get as much information as you possibly can. When I did my Wyoming backcountry hunt, I was on several different forums, and I would just reach out to anybody I could find that had done that hunt and just send them a message and be like, hey, what kind of tips could you give me? And you'd be surprised at the amount of info you could get. That actually paid off on that hunt too, because, we got ran out by a forest fire, and I actually had talked to a guy that I'd met. I'd never met him before, met him online, and I actually sent him a message during that hunt, and he gave us a couple other locations to go to. So it never hurts to reach out to other people and just, get as much info as you can.
Yeah, I'd say one thing too to add is, especially if it's one of your first times doing that type of a trip, try and take as much time as you can. If you maybe you're planning on doing 5 days, but you could maybe make it 7 or 8. Yep. Do everything you can to make it 7 or 8, because you might find that by day 4 or 5 you're starting to get in the rhythm and starting to figure things out, and then you got to go back home.
You said that about Missouri last year.
Exactly. It came down to me not wanting to buy another tag so I could hunt the rifle season, but
that's right.
I had figured stuff out, and if I could have stayed another day or two, I feel like I would have had success. So
that's what happened to us in Michigan last year.
Yeah.
We got rained out the first 3 days. We finally got it figured out, and then had to leave.
It was over.
That is true.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were starting to figure that place out.
Yep. So give yourself more time if it's possible. With the work schedule and stuff, it's hard, but all it takes is a couple extra days sometimes. Especially on an out-of-state trip where you've never been there, it takes a couple days to get the feel of things and what's going on. So, more time is always better.
Well, and I've talked about this before as well with a lot of people, that I like to go, and Andy, you said it earlier, that you go and you spend the first couple days scouting. Granted, you said you're doing it before the season. 2 or 3 years ago when I went to Illinois, and even last year when we went to Missouri, I didn't even hunt. I could have legally. It was during the season. But I didn't even hunt the first few days because I felt like it's more valuable to understand the area than to dive right into, maybe an average spot. Or maybe you're diving into a spot that is dynamite, but because I didn't kind of take a little bit extra time and figure it out, I screwed it up because I used the wrong access where I hunted it at the wrong time.
Especially if you haven't been there yet.
Yeah.
If you haven't been there yet and you just show up, a couple days of scouting before you actually sit. If it's like during the rut and deer kind of random movement,
sure,
that can pay off.
I agree.
Yeah.
And I've had people tell me I'm crazy because I literally, me and my brother, we went 2 days before everybody got there. Middle of the season, we could have hunted extra 2 days, but we didn't. We toured around on the bikes, covered a ton of ground, eliminated a lot of spots, and found some really awesome spots, and it ended up paying off.
Well, John, do that in Kansas.
I always do that. I
Yeah.
never go pre-scout any place. I always blow off at least the first day and a half.
Well, that's
Last
where I
year
got
was
the
first
idea.
2 days. Yeah,
That's in your books.
Yeah, I plan a 7-day hunt, and the first day and a half, 2 days, I'd blow off, and I want to have at least 4 or 5 or more locations prepped that are good. So, a lot of guys will go out there and they'll scout, and first place they see that looks good, and because I'm from Michigan, everything would look good,
Yeah. Yeah.
And when you set up the first place that looks good, there may be something a lot better, maybe 100 yards away.
Bingo.
But yeah, and
Yeah.
when you guys were talking about, reacting to what's going on, biggest buck I ever shot was under an 80-incher in Iowa, and I was hunting in a tree in the morning. I planned on an all-day sit. I had a decoy out, and it just wasn't happening. And I was seeing movement a couple hundred yards back, closer to a river, and I got down and moved, and I didn't take the decoy with me. I wrapped that up and left it there for when I exited. But I shot my 180-incher just by reacting to what I visually seen, because what I was doing was not working.
That brings up my hunt last year in Kentucky. I went down there for the first time ever, had never been there. The first day or two, my plan was to just drive around, look at access, go check a few spots out, and not hunt until I found something that I liked. Mm-hmm. And like you said, reacting to a situation. I saw a buck cross the road driving in the second day, and that caused me to pull out my Onyx, look at that spot, and be like, well, that makes kind of sense why he was going in there. He's going back in there to bed. He was just a tiny little strip of brush between crop fields, and I went in there that evening and I killed him. So, if I wouldn't have seen him cross the road, I would have just kept looking for spots until I found something. So just
gotta react.
What's been really helpful for me on out-of-state trips is I like to plan, I like to have plan A, B, C, and D. And what that does for me is when I go, if plan A doesn't pan out, I'm not in panic mode. Where do I go next? Where do I park? Like Jared says, I like to know where I'm going to park. I like to have my accesses mapped out, all that stuff. Even different pieces of public and different areas. I like to have plan A, which is the spot I have the most confidence in, maybe where I saw the most sign, the least amount of hunting pressure. Maybe I found some sheds in there or whatever, but this is plan A because it just seems like I have the most confidence in that. And then I have plan B. If plan A doesn't pan out and there's other hunters in there and it's just the deer action's slow, I go to plan B. There's no guessing. There's no let's figure this out, panic mode, let's waste an afternoon figuring this out. I go right to plan B. And if that doesn't pan out, I got plan C and plan D. We did that with our elk hunt. We were never in a situation where we didn't know what to do next. Mm-hmm. It was okay, it's not happening here, we're going here. Yep. It's not happening here, we're going here. Now we're in the elk.
That's key.
Yep. Yeah.
Yep.
And when you have that, you're not wasting time. It's you have the confidence, okay, this is where we're going to go. All right, it's not here, this is where we're going to go. And if you got a decent amount of skill and you did some adequate scouting, one of those spots is going to pay off.
Yeah.
I mean, it's most of our listeners and all of us here, we're experienced enough. We know how to read sign. We know how to get into some good hunting. But there's other factors that come into play, like hunting pressure and whatnot. So, you just got to plan for that. And by having that planned out, it's for us, it's been a huge impact in our success because we just don't have to waste that time trying to figure out the next step.
Well, and what I think is actually, by having that plan, it eliminates the commitment to an area, right? Especially on a backpacking hunt, right? You might backpack in and set up camp, and you're like, man, it was so much work to get here. I gotta stay here a long time.
That's what I did.
Yep.
Whereas if you've got 4 plans, you're like, all right, I don't feel scared to move because I have a plan. But if you don't have a plan, you're more likely going to stick it out in that area that's just not producing for a longer amount of time.
Yeah.
So that backup plan eliminates some of the fear and adds confidence in, okay, yeah, we can – it's going to suck. We're going to have to pack up camp and hike out of here. But I'm really excited to go see plan B.
Yeah.
Agreed.
So that helps a ton.
The other thing that it does is when I go somewhere, you said A, B, C, D is the plans you listed. That's pretty much exactly what I'm looking for. I'm looking for 3 to 5 spots that are they look so good, I want to climb a tree and sit there all day right now.
Yeah.
I don't want to leave. I'm looking for 3 to 5 places that are just blow your mind good. And if I find 3 to 5 of those, I guarantee you I'm going to find 5 to 10 that are like, hey, this is pretty good too.
Mm-hmm.
And so now I've got this bank of 10 to 15 spots that I can bounce around based on, wind or
happening?
pressure or, hey, I saw that buck over there, crossing this road chasing a doe. I bet he's going down to that thick spot over there that I scouted 2 days ago. I'm going to go set up there. So I think it's really valuable to do that.
I think it's another interesting thing for guys looking to go out of state. If you're going to go out of state, look for property that has maybe 70 to 80% ag and 20 to 30% timber. Because once the crops are down, if anybody's going out during the rut phases, crops are all going to be down, whether it be milo out west or corn, corn in Ohio or Illinois or, Kansas or whatever. Once crops are down, the deer are a lot more congested. I think that's a mistake a lot of guys do is they go and they want to go to big timber areas where there's oaks all over the place, there's mast everywhere, and deer tend to wander. It's hard to find destination locations. So if you can find areas, and the best way to look for areas like that is find creek beds. You find creek beds on public land going through, small timber areas on public land, and it's surrounded by private crop fields. And once the crops are picked, man, the deer just are congested in those spots, and it's just so much easier to hunt on a short-term hunt. Now, if you got all season to hunt there, if you're a resident, obviously you can pinpoint something eventually. But on a short-term hunt, you want to hunt as congested a traffic as possible.
Makes sense. I mean, the creek beds aren't tillable, right? So they're going to be little funnels through different
And
places.
they always have security cover along them because it's damp.
Yep.
They always
That-
have weeds or brush.
When you mentioned that a few weeks ago, I heard that you say that same thing, and I looked at the waypoints that I had been pre-scouting for South Dakota, and I noticed, the pattern that I had picked was that a lot of those areas I did have, there were a lot of drainages that were pretty wooded, and you could find spots within a spot, but it was a little bit more challenging than if you would just shift, 5 miles over. Now you just got narrow creeks between some of those, and it makes a ton of sense.
Yeah, because in Kansas, there's lots of areas where we hunt where it's just draws. There are thousands and thousands of year old draws, and you'll be looking across the countryside. I remember when Brian and I went there the first time, we're like, how in the hell do you hunt here? Because we're in western Kansas where it's plainsy. And you'll see the tips of some trees 3/4 of a mile away across a field. And you go out there, and they're 100-foot tall cottonwoods down in these old floodplains draws, and they're full of hemp and weeds and plum brush. And they're just awesome transition routes. That's where all the deer bed when their crops are down, and they just transition up and through there, bucks do, looking for does. And, they may be 100 yards wide in one spot and 200 yards wide. They just kind of meander through the countryside, and it's just so simple that way. I hate to say it, it's just so simple. And we're going to Kansas this year. But as far as hunting out of state, we always go during Michigan's gun season because I don't gun hunt. And but other than that, I suffer with everybody in Michigan. Because I write about pressure deer and speak about it, and I got a YouTube channel, Eberhart Outdoors, which just started, and that's going to pretty much be about hunting pressure deer. I suffer with all the other Michiganders until gun season.
So I think it's a great point that you said. It makes it more simple. So if we kind of started talking about this for the guy that's going on his first trip. So he's probably living in Alabama or Georgia or Michigan, and he's going he's leaving somewhere that's hard to hunt. He's going out of state to somewhere that is easier to hunt.
Yes.
And that scale is it's extremely varied, the easy to hard hunt scale. Everyone has a different opinion, but you're going somewhere that's easier to hunt on some scale. And I couldn't agree more. Try to look for no-brainer spots because, and I do that. I killed my buck in Missouri last year in a no-brainer spot.
Yep.
Any idiot in the world could have picked it out on a map. However, the difference is, in Georgia, Michigan, name the state that's hard to hunt. The deer don't always act like deer. It's a no-brainer transition zone. You got a weed field going through crop fields. Any idiot can look at it and go, "Oh, I bet the deer's going to walk down that brushy row." Well, in Georgia, they might not do that because they're so skittish. But in states like Kansas and Illinois and some of these other, they do that. They act like normal deer.
Well, what you did on that hunt, though, last year, you showed me where you were at, and I thought that was kind of unique because There was a bedding area, crop fields over here, and there was pretty much, you said, open timber in between.
Yeah.
And you actually hunted over on the one side of that where there was also some security cover from the bedding area to that creek bottom, that ditch. So that was a place where, to me, a buck would transition through that security cover and then take that ditch line down to those crop fields as opposed to going through that open timber and being vulnerable.
Yeah.
So, in my opinion, that was a no-brainer. And then the way you entered it made all the difference in the world.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Creative access is one of my keys. Something that I look for all the time. I've talked about that a lot. If there is water, and I learned this from your books, I mean, if there is water, if there is a canyon, something that, if there's really thick briars, that will weed out 80% of your people right there. And even if it's kind of an easy to get to spot as far as like distance-wise, but if there's some sort of impediment like a river, a lot of people won't go there. And if you're willing to take creative access, maybe walk the long way around or put on your chest waders or get wet. And we talked about that in North Dakota. Maybe I just have to get wet crossing the river. I guess it won't matter in early season. But if you're willing to look for those overlooked spots or hard to access spots because of an impediment sometimes, you can have a honey hole in something like that.
We hear that all the time. I mean, Infalt hunts wet all the time.
Yeah, he does.
I mean, he goes over his boot tops. He's up to his waist.
He's never dry.
Yeah, he's just always wet, you know. And he does it when it's cold, too, crushing through the ice or whatever. He'll just sit up there and shiver when he's wet.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
We have a visitor.
Okay. That was interesting.
Stripper just came in.
Yeah. I think we've got big Adrian Wilson here, who is, I think he's maybe had one too many to drink. He's acting a little insane right now.
I think he's coming down here to give us some junk because his daughter struck us all out in fast pitch.
Oh yeah. Well, I took her yard. I took a 10-year-old yard in softball, so I feel pretty good about myself right now. No, we've been talking for an hour here, so it's probably actually a good time to kind of sum it up. So we could probably go around and maybe give last little tips about, whatever you want to say. You said you had a new YouTube channel coming out. I'm pretty excited about that. You've got a lot of information.
Yep, just posted the first one, and I got about 30 shows to post, but I got a bunch more I'm going to film, and it's primarily going to be about bow hunting whitetails, but there's going to be fishing on it. It's going to be a lot of different stuff. But the first year, it's probably going to focus on bow hunting, scouting, prepping locations, gear, stuff that you're not going to see on any other YouTube shows I've ever seen before. Anyway, it's just going to be different. Nope, there's not going to be any hunts on it that are just edited, kills. It's just going to be all pretty much instructional stuff.
That's cool.
Yeah.
And what's it you said? You're gonna call it?
Eberhart's Outdoors.
Okay, cool.
My two boys are involved in it as well. So.
Cool. That'll be good. Garrett, any last parting thoughts?
I know one thing that's helped me a lot, and I don't know if we've mentioned it, really so far, is one trap that has been really easy for me to fall in is having historical success in a spot and then having that influence how you're going to hunt as opposed to just trusting the sign. And it usually happens if I have not been diligent with my in-season scouting. Maybe I haven't been able to hunt for 7-8 days and I have a free afternoon and I say, well, I don't know exactly what's going on right now, but I've had success in this spot before and I'll just go back there and hunt it even if the sign doesn't look that great. When in reality, I should be, be more diligent and just kind of reading the sign and making the best play for that given day. So that'd be my parting thought.
Yeah, I think that's pretty valuable. Where can people learn more about DIY Sportsman?
Either on YouTube, DIY Sportsman podcast. I have a DIY Sportsman podcast that's part of the Sportsman's Nation podcast network. The Vitals Live platform, John's on that as well.
Forgot to mention that.
Live webinars that I'll do some content, and Instagram, Facebook, all the social media stuff.
Cool. Ernie, final thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it's been fun to listen to everybody's kind of plan of attack and game plan for an out-of-state hunt, because we've all done them, and not necessarily together. A lot of us have done them on our own and kind of had to learn and attack it. So, yeah, it's just been great to hear. And every time I sit in one of these little forums, I probably learn as much as the people
Yeah, me too.
in the audience. So it's really a cool experience for that.
Jared, anything?
No, I mean, it's just awesome sitting here talking with all these guys. I mean, been hanging out with them all weekend and, always learn something from, everybody here. So it's just been really good to get together and, talk strategy and new gear, which there's a lot of new gear coming. So you should be excited.
Yeah, this has been a fun weekend.
Yeah, super
This
fun.
has been a fun weekend.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. The gear coming down the pipe is pretty exciting. Everybody at this table I've learned a lot from, whether it's from gear, hunting strategy. We're all friends, but I watch all of your content religiously, and I learn something new all the time. So I'm just thankful to be part of it. I've had a lot of fun, and hopefully we all have some good luck this fall. Hopefully the listeners do too. So
Yeah.
Yeah, I learned that I'm going to Iowa this year, because I'm going to pull a tag next year.
Yeah, we should
And
both
you
pull a
said that
tag.
you go, yeah, we're both going to go hunt Iowa next year, and you said that you go every year, even if you're not hunting, and that's a freaking great idea. So I think I should probably go this year, even if it's for a weekend. I mean, I can cover a lot of ground on a Saturday and a Sunday.
that's what I do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think I'm going to do that and start getting boots on the ground. And then it'll just be easier when you give me your waypoints and stuff from Onyx. It'll just be,
I have to throw something.
I'll have a leg up then.
Yeah.
Here comes John with the Kansas invitation.
No.
Yeah.
Kudos to Val. Ernie's wife, Val,
Absolutely.
is a phenomenal cook. I can't believe he doesn't weigh 300 pounds. She is the best.
Yes.
Man,
So-
she is awesome cook, and she's been awesome at this.
It's been really fun, right? So this is our chance to kind of thank everybody involved in Tethered. We do I call it a family picnic because truly everybody is family, and so everybody's in town for a couple of days, and this gives us a chance to look at some new gear, to look at some new ideas, have a couple drinks, play, shoot some bows, and just kind of just get everybody primed and ready for the season that's up and coming. And yes, John's right. My wife does most of the stuff for this event, and it's perfect.
It is.
It
It's
is.
a great event. And I wish we had 10 microphones, because we have killers here that could have sat down and made this conversation any better, or even better, rather. But we don't have enough mics. Everyone here but Adrian is a good hunter. He's over there just.
Carl, too.
Yeah, and Carl. Yeah, big.
Ow.
He's over there mean mugging behind the camera. So, yeah, I wish we had 4 more mics to have everybody down here. Ernie kind of nailed it, man. This is really more of like a thank you to everyone, and it's pretty cool. Thank you all for
I
coming.
want to thank you guys for something too, because this saddle thing, this is designed to make you guys more successful hunters, and these guys are really working hard at it. They're tweaking everything. They're making the best products available, and man, I want to thank you guys for doing that. I've been in the saddle thing for a long, long time, and you guys have taken it to a whole nother level.
Well, it's a labor of love. You know, some guys are killers, like
Yeah.
Andy and Jared happens to be a gear guy too. But like, you guys are really good at killing stuff. Ernie and I, like, we're kind of good at killing stuff, but we're really good at gear stuff, and
Yeah.
that's kind of like our niche, and so we love it. That's what we think about all the time, and we're constantly tweaking. And
Garrett's a
yeah,
gear guy.
yeah, absolutely.
Big
I
time.
mean, the whole team that we have, they all have their strengths, and
Yeah.
and you know, Andy's always going to be a better hunter than me, but I'm probably always going to be better at dealing with gear. You know, it's just everyone has different strengths and weaknesses. So we have a team here that is just freaking awesome, and
Yeah.
Awesome.
everybody brings something to the table. And when you do that, and you come up with a really awesome team and a product,
But you
and
know what the best part
products.
is? Just like you said, I have never claimed to be a big killer. I've gotten lucky. I've killed a few things here and there, but I have no choice but to get better
Yeah.
every time I sit in a room with
Now we get better. 'Cause
Yeah,
we learn
exactly.
things from the really good killers.
Yeah, I mean, we surround ourselves with people who are better at this than we are, and so it's kind of a self-serving thing, right? So every time you guys come here, it's because I want to learn. So
Yeah. It's kind of like how we started the company.
Yeah.
We wanted the gear. We were totally selfish.
Yeah.
We wanted
We
the
wanted
gear
our
that
own
we
saddles.
wanted, and we couldn't afford it, so we had to sell it to all of you people, and so we could get our stuff. It was totally selfish. So now we just surround ourselves with the best hunters, and it's awesome. So anyway, we're rambling now, but yeah, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you guys on the next Tethered podcast, and you can find us on Tethered Nation on pretty much everywhere. Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, whatever. And then follow all these guys as well. Hunt Appalachia. Andy doesn't have a YouTube channel, but he's on every podcast in the world because everybody wants to hear what he has to say because he's a killer. So follow Hunt Appalachia. That's Jared's channel. And listen to all of Andy May's podcasts. And follow John, buy his books. And then go watch everything that Garrett does and listen to his podcasts. And you guys will be better hunters for it.
Good luck.
That's it.
There you go.